So Pluto just moved into Aquarius. Let's talk about some navigation tools because Pluto can be pretty dark. It can be pretty blinding. It is the underworld. So one of the fundamentals of Aquarius is being able to predict what is about to happen. What is about to happen might be unexpected, but there is a structure and an order that comes before that what is about to happen that allows us to understand or see, this is what might possibly be or become. If you familiarize yourself with your 11th house in your chart and then also where your Aquarius is in your chart, both of those spaces, those are going to be the areas of your life and the energies, and the placements would be more of like the skills where you are going to be able to predict what comes next. For example, earlier I was out at a cafe writing up the blog for today, and there was a wasp that landed by my keyboard. It was a little scary. How I reacted set up the order. The fact that nature even offered that to me set up an order. And in the moment, I knew, I could feel it. It was important. So I sat and I watched and I paid attention and I interpreted that being landing there because there was a knowing that was coming out of my spirit, my body, my mind. So I sat, I received the message. I was able to, because of that order and structure that happened, predict through my 11th house and my Aquarius placements, my personal skills, and you have some too, probably. I was able to predict and receive, this is probably what this has to do with. This is probably what this is going to turn into, or this is probably what I can expect in the future from what has just happened. That navigation tool is going to be super important as we walk through this because Aquarius and Uranus is very unpredictable. Okay, it has to do with unpredictability. But one of the things I've learned about chaos and unpredictability is that there's still an order. It's just bigger than we are able to understand or different than we are able to understand in that moment. So if you can relate those structures, not my oven going off at the same time. Okay. If you can relate those structures and those orders that are in the messages you're receiving to your toolbox, your personal spiritual toolbox. Wasps, for me, mean something very specific. So when it landed on my keyboard, in the example I gave earlier, I was like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. And then I was able to interpret, the steps that were taken after that. The wasp climbed onto some glasses. There was some other stuff that happened. So I was, just paying attention. But glasses mean something to me very specifically. That's what I mean by the order and the structure. So if you're interpreting that order and that structure, there is your process of navigation. Because eventually those interpretations, they're going to inform whatever force allowed that to happen. Whatever beings and spirits were involved with that wasp landing, where it landed, and me also showing up and making the decisions to show up where I did. Because Pluto's also about the will, it's about choice. Well, that's one of the things that it is interpreted as. At least that's one of the ways I work with Pluto. So that discernment, I suppose, but that's one of the qualities and fundamentals of Pluto is your choice and your decisions and your will and the ancestral choices, but that's a whole nother layer to it. So for now, just your individual choices. True. So how you interpret those messages, those symbols, the structure and the order, that will let the spirits around you and however the forces that be created that moment, it will let them know what sort of life are we to deliver after this? What sort of life are we to bring through because of the order that was created in this before moment? And if you are able to be aware and connect the two happening in that pre-order and structure, the wasp with the keyboard and all that, if you can relate that to when it actually grounds, you got it. You got it. As we enter into Pluto and Aquarius, that very simple space, I don't know if that's simple actually, that might be a little bit more complicated, but that's a basic for what we're walking into and how complicated Pluto and Aquarius is in perspective actually. So it is. Yeah. Being able to relate the two of those is the power. And Pluto is also about power. So that is the power of Pluto and Aquarius. It's one of the aspects of the power of Pluto and Aquarius. Nature and the will of nature, the decisions of nature are going to be our projections, directions, protections also, okay? Important that is noted. Protections also in the coming era in Pluto in Aquarius. So start to get that sort of fundamental under your feet and like in your skills and your toolbox walk with it a little bit, walk with it, talk with it a little bit, start to understand it. Because we also, Saturn is one of the rulers of Aquarius, and that's about time. We can't really control the time that happens in between that predictive order and structure, the interpretation of it, and then when a bigger life is grounded because of that order and structure and interpretation, we can't control the time in between those two things happening. It's just delivered when it's delivered. We don't have control over those sorts of bindings through Pluto and Aquarius, at least not yet. At least not yet. And why do I say at least not yet? Because as Pluto moves through Aquarius, our skills develop. So it's possible that this could become something where we're able to bind those sorts of time in the future. But for now, at least the way that I've been sitting in it is to just let it exist. Be aware of it, have the awareness, but don't try to bind it yet. That's a safety precaution too, especially with Pluto involved. Okay, moving on. If you're able to sit and communicate with nature itself throughout this process, you're offering power and will to nature. So the more that you interpret those messages, when you know, it's like a knowing, you know that it's important, you know that something is happening, so you take the time to sit and interpret it. The more that you do that, the more you are nurturing and nourishing the relationship with that process, more than likely, the more often those sorts of happenings will be offered to you. So if you're looking for something to do now that the planet of Pluto is through with Capricorn, there's a beginning start. Yeah, that's true. Gratitude, reverence, and love to you. Keep it up. Keep doing what you need to do. That's a really powerful, potent, so powerful and so potent tool. I will also give a protective note. Be kind if you are blind. Be kind when there is blindness, and this process has a lot of blindness in it, okay? Those predictive things that happened before, we don't know what's going to show up later. If you weave cruelty, sometimes it's necessary. It just depends on the situation. Protectiveness, that's part of Scorpio and Pluto, so like very, very refined discernment in that. But also, if you weave cruelty into that pre-order or pre-structure, oh my goodness, probably because of the order and the structure and the fundamentals of the Pluto and Aquarius, it'll have to happen again, or maybe not have to happen again, but it's possible. There's a possibility. There's more to it, but it's like such a big transit and it's so complicated. So I'll just leave that rest for now, digest it if you need to, how you need to. True. And I'll talk to you soon.